electrifying breakfast program on your radio. Stay engaged, stay informed, and let's make democracy work together.
Okay, folks, good morning again. Good morning. You've been listening to the Today Show here on Spoon 107.5 FM. We're also live on Super 95.5, plus a host of other community radio stations that are relaying us across Liberia. This is the final segment of the show. And we have as our guest in studio, Mr. Ezekiel Barclay Pajibo. We'll be discussing elections matters. But campaign has officially closed. But you also call us before we leave the studios to let us know what's your observation since the campaign officially closed at 11:59 p.m. last night. Have you observed total adherence, to the NEC regulations that all campaigning materials must be taken down? People shouldn't be wearing party t-shirts, party paraphernalia, whatever it is. You should desist from doing any of that and observe the election rules as well. Good morning to you, whoever it is you're listening to us from across Liberia. Good afternoon, good evening to those of you watching us via Spoon TV around the world. Once again, you're welcome to the final segment of the Today Show. Let me bring on my guest for this segment, Mr. Ezekiel Barclay Pajibo. He's here in studio. Good morning to you, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners.
How are you doing?
I'm pretty good.
Upbeat?
I'm good.
You good?
Yes, I'm good.
All right. It's a pleasure being here with you, Mr. Pajibo. Let's get into the observations, what we've noticed, what we observed during the campaigning period. We're not going to talk much about campaign because it's now closed officially, but we can have a conversation surrounding that. Not that we're telling people who to vote for, how, but we can tell them how to vote as well. We'll get to that part. But we witnessed a vigorous, spree of endorsements chasing. And what's your observation of the campaign that ensued for those 2 to 3 weeks, I should say?
Endorsement is part and parcel of the political process, especially during the election period. So, in my view, it is welcome. Of course, there are indications there was some inducement, but we don't know for sure whether that was the case. But endorsement is part and parcel of the political process. People get endorsed, and some people do not endorse other people, but it's part of the political process.
Okay. Aside the endorsement, that did go on, I know you from the LPP, you a member of the LPP, though you try to downplay your role and involvement with the LPP, but we take it as just a member of the LPP. But from your stance as an ordinary Liberian, looking at what occurred during that process, what is your overall validation of the process in terms of how it went? We didn't get too many reports of violence and all of those things, but it was more of much of the battle was even fought on social media space. So just give us your take on that observation.
I think we're very fortunate in this country that this is our our fourth election since the end of the war,
Yeah.
and we've been able to conduct ourselves in a relatively safer manner. I know that sometimes our diction can be bombastic. I think people, the use of profanity, we need to cut back on that. We don't have to agree on everything, but we don't have to resort into insults. So that's one of my major problems. I think we need to back away from profanity. We need to engage civilly with each other. But generally speaking, it went very well. There were hiccups here and there. Some protests in the Gardners, in Gardners Field. Some protests, violent protests that is, or in the Gardnersville area, and I think in other parts of the country, in Lofa, in Nima. And we found all those kinds of violence. I think that our people should appreciate the fact that it is possible, it is necessary that we have a non-violent political process in this country, because we are witness to what violence can do. And we are informed by our history that we must avoid at all costs, being violent to each other. After all, this is a country of about 5 million people. That's a very small number. And we one way or another, we may be related. If we are not related, we probably go to the same school. If we don't go to the same school, probably go to the same church. If we have not gone to the same church, we will from the same county. So there's all of that interconnectedness, and we need to celebrate that interconnectedness as Liberians. Anywhere you go in the world, when a Liberian speaks somebody or a Liberian woman speaks, you can pick up the accent, immediately. And for some strange reason, when we are out there, we can be more friendly to each other. But when we are here, then it looks like we can't be friendly to each other. So I think, generally speaking, the conduct of the election went very well. I think that the result of the election is an indication of the Liberian people will. And I think that moving forward, we need to respect the will of the Liberian people.
Maturity. As you said, this is our fourth elections being conducted in the country since the cessation of civil hostilities here in Liberia. Others who want to call it our third republic, if you want to look at that, because we restored our constitution after the transitional government and all of that. We restored our constitution, so you could call it our third republic if you want. But let's look at maturity level in terms of democratic gains. What have we made? Strides on the upper level, or are we digressing maturity-wise, democratic gains?
Well, my position has always been that our politics is still in flux, meaning that we have not been able to arrive at the point where we have institutionalized our political parties. A lot of our politics is driven by personalities. And it is a little bit problematic, because when the personality fade, the political parties fail. It fades. So we need to protect against that. We need to develop our political institutions so that with or without the personality, the institution survives, the institution is alive, and the institution is able to pronounce itself on issues that the Liberian people are confronting. The problems in Liberia don't go away because we have elections. Okay, so during the period of administering the country in one way and election, there are a myriad of issues that continue to present themselves. Political parties in the institutional form have to respond to those kinds of occasions. Take, for example, when the government announces a budget, it is incumbent upon the political party to say, well, if we have power, what they call shadow government.
Yeah, like in the UK, you have under ministers. They make sure to scrutinize everything that's been done by the minister proper.
Exactly. And when you do that, when you have informed discussion around the issue, you say, our shadow minister of finance says that this budget is good or is bad. It is bad because of ABCD. And if we have power, this is how we write the budget. What that does is that it provides the kind of information for informed debates on matters, so we don't get carried away by gossip, by rumors, and by misinformation. And that's one of the other difficulties we have during this election. There were too many misinformation that was finding a way around social media and other areas. So we need to enlighten ourselves. We need to be faithful to accuracy, to proper information, and we should refrain from spreading rumors. I always tell people, if you know something is a rumor, don't repeat it. If you repeat it, then you're a rumor monger.
All right. So the the direct question in there, though you say our democracy is in flux, as you said, have we made strides? Are we progressing as a democratic country since we went back to the polls, democratically in 2005? When you do your comparative analysis, Mr. Pajibo, are we making gains?
No, definitely we are making gains. We are making
In
gains.
which areas are we making gains?
First of all, one of the function of a democratic order is to maintain our peace. And we have had 20 years of peace, which is enormous accomplishment by any measure. We've done that. I also believe that people know that every 6 years they're going to vote.
Mhm.
So it's becoming something that will be normalized and we will be accustomed to voting periodically. And we need to understand that is a right. And I'd like to make the point that we reckon responsibilities and obligations.
Of
so
course.
we need to exercise that right to vote because it is through our vote that we're able to say what we want and what we do not want. So we've grown, but we still have a long way to go. When you look at chronology, 20 years is still youthful.
Yeah.
You say a young
Yeah.
democracy.
Mhm.
So we need to build the democratic tendency. We need to entrench our democratic order. We need to speak power speak truth to the people who are in power. And they must be in the position to accept the fact that we live in a democratic society and we're different. We're different. Again, I want to underline this idea that we must base our analysis on research, on facts, and on those elements that we believe can move our country forward. We don't have the luxury of engaging in activities that take our country backward. We have 20 years of peace. We now gone through our fourth democratic order, and I think it's helpful. If you see the result, especially in the House and the Senate,
Mhm.
people have expressed the decision that if you went there and you didn't represent my interest, I have that power to get you out.
Mhm.
And that's how democracy is supposed to work. And I have all the confidence that our democracy will mature, our institution will mature, and I think that democracy is here to stay.
Okay, democracy is here to stay, and Liberians will be going to the polls on tomorrow for the second time in less than a month to vote either to retain the current government or to bring in or usher in a brand new government or a brand new president. The government is not going to be brand new in its entirety. We'll have new cabinet ministers and all of that, but you have the bulk of the civil servants still retaining their jobs. But let's talk about what is expected on tomorrow in terms of what's your expectation? What do you want Liberians to do on tomorrow when they go to the various voting precincts to cast their ballots? The do's, the don'ts, the what haves and the what have nots. What's there for you, Mr. Paji?
Well, elections are the only moment in our lives where every registered voter across the country, we are all equal on that day. Because we all have one ballot each.
Mhm.
That ballot is going to be a secret ballot. Only we know who we're going to vote for. So we need to exercise that right. There are some among us who say that they're not coming out to vote. We think that is a disservice to the country. Everybody who is a registered voter must come out to vote.
Mhm.
It is your obligation. The building of democracy in this country is the obligation of every single Liberian, especially those who are registered voters. So they need to come out and vote. Number two, we need to be peaceful. We cannot overemphasize that point. We need to be peaceful. We need to be calm. We need to be orderly. We understand that sometimes there, some hiccups here and there, maybe the NDC going short time and those kinds of things. But we need to be patient. But sometimes we don't need to stay in the queue for 3 hours either. This thing needs to be done in a much more efficient way, so we can just come, vote, and then leave. But we need to be peaceful. We need to be calm. We need to be patient. We need to be orderly. And I think those are the kinds of things that need to happen. We already been told the campaigning is over.
Mhm.
So all the regulations that are in place that say, for example, don't come to the polling station in your T-shirt. Don't come with your political regalia on your car. All those things will be observed, because when you don't do that, you will be provoking some other people. And there are some of us who, we just there in the crowd, ready to be provoked. They say, that an idle man is a devil's workshop. We don't want to provide any kind of provocation to anybody, so we must just ensure, just wear your plain shirt, your plain t-shirt. Don't adorn your car with paraphernalia, because we want this voting to be peaceful, transparent, orderly, and calm.
There are calls for Liberians, once they've cast their votes, to remain, at the various voting precincts in order to protect their votes. What say a few concerning those calls?
No, I think that we need to stay away from this idea that somehow our votes will not be protected. I think that we have the institutional arrangement in this country to protect those votes.
But we've seen the institutional arrangement fail on numerous occasions, and even in the just ended October 10 polls, the recently staged October 10 polls, where several voting precincts and polling places, you had people barging in to reports and confirmed by the NEC of taking ballot boxes and all of these things. And you said it's the responsibility of Liberians to go out there and vote. Isn't that equally binding on them to be responsible citizens, to stick around, make sure that their votes are protected in an orderly manner?
And again, that's why we have poll watchers. Mm-hmm. That's why we have international and local observers. My hope, my prayer is that the poll watchers and the local international observers will do that. We must stay away from vigilantism. Okay, that vigilantism is not a way to express our call for justice, because when you say people are there to protect the ballot, I mean, where in the laws that it says that people should be able to protect the ballot? You are appealing to people or vigilantism or tendency. I think we need to step back away from those kinds of behavior. We don't want to promote vigilantism in our society. Mob justice is not justice. Mob justice is chaos. Vigilantism can lead to violence. If we are talking about a peaceful, non-violent or process, we should not be promoting. We should not be promoting vigilantism.
So if you say, I'm trying to come around this question again. If you say, I've cast my ballot and I'm sticking around, I'm staying around that area, and I'm going to observe, is it not the same as a citizen who doesn't apply depraved indifference, where you see a child is going to the water to drown and you say, okay, I need to get that child, or you stand and say, okay, I'm not going to do anything. You're not being violent, but you being there just in case anything happens, for you to be able to report, not to resist what is happening only, but to report and make sure that what you've put in that ballot box is not taken away illegally and it's not going to be accounted for. Where is the thin line that comes from being civil and being a vigilante?
Yeah, okay. And I'm so happy that you use the example that you just gave. One, if a child is drowning and you don't know how to swim, you don't go to save the child, because both of you.
But you can yell and call for help. Yes. That's the same as saving the child.
No,
isn't that the same? If you apply any effort in making sure that child is taken out of the water in the soonest or earliest possible time, you save that child's life, haven't you?
So that's why everywhere there are swimming facilities, we have lifeguards, or we should have lifeguards. Okay, the job of the lifeguard is to make sure that the people who are swimming will be protected in the case of a drowning. But if you don't know how to swim and you jump in the water, both of you could die. And that's exactly my point. My point is that, yes, you can stay around and observe, but you cannot also clothe yourself in the authority to protect the ballot. I mean, what does that even mean?
Your presence by being around alone. Now, it's a deterrence. It is a deterrence.
Okay,
that is protecting in itself. That is protecting in itself. You're not going to be violent in any way, form, or manner, but being around, just so if there is any intent of secretly going out to take ballot boxes or forcibly going in there, and the presence is there, about 20 persons can make a call, about 100 persons can go live. That is going to catch the attention of law enforcement. You don't have to be violent, in restraining or stopping a situation or preventing something from happening. So that's why I want you to draw the line. Are you for people casting a ballot, being right around there to make sure that if there is any intent, that intent is quelled by their presence? Or you saying once you cast your vote, trust the system, go home. There are poll watchers, there are observers. We have had instances, though the LMP through the joint security just had a press conference a couple of days ago and said they've been staffed enough. They've beefed up their strength. But we did have instances where even here in Montserrado County, voters overwhelmed police officers. And there were risks of things happening. So my question to you, Mr. Pajibo, is to draw the thin line. Are you for preventive measures, non-violent preventive measures in protecting votes as well? Or you for, don't do anything, cast your vote, go home, and allow the system to work for you?
Well, again, we need to be very careful in the way we proceed in these matters. First of all, when the polling stations are closed and the ballots are being counted, there is no way you can protect your ballot at that point because it's indoors. It's indoors and you are outside. So the whole idea that somehow you are going to protect your ballot is a fallacy. Okay, so let's understand that. That is why we need the political parties to have adequate poll watchers. We want to register our faith in our system that is going to deliver the kinds of results that is manifested in our votes. We need to be mindful of the fact that, and that's why we need to be overwhelming in the expression of our choice. If the choice is overwhelming, if we know who we want and we vote accordingly, the result will reflect that. The result will reflect that. It doesn't mean that there will not be problems. There's no election anywhere that is not our problems. But we have systems in place that are supposed to guard against those problems or that can be used to adjudicate those problems. When we start talking about protecting the ballot, that is very, very vigilante. And vigilantism is not the way for us to proceed in this country. We've seen what it has done to people.
So being vigilant and being a vigilante, two different things. You can be vigilant by sticking around, observing if there's any act or malfeasance, making sure that people don't come and vote twice because you were there and you know who entered the polling place or the voting precinct at first to their polling place to come back. And you can tell who's trying to induce people on the queues or in the queues. You can tell by just being there and being vigilant and not interfering in any way, form, or manner, or being violent. Being a vigilante and taking the law into your own hands is a different thing. So, Mr. Pajibo, you still haven't answered the question. You keep going around the question, and I can be stubborn when it comes to wanting to get my question answered. Which are you for? Cast your vote, go home. Don't stay around, don't stick around, don't wait, don't try to be observant, don't try to be vigilant, or stick around but be non-violent and report to the requisite authorities and resist in a peaceful manner. Which are you for?
No, I will be equivocal in what I have to say.
Yeah.
Because there's a tendency for your pronouncement to have different interpretation for the person who is hearing it.
Go ahead.
Okay. True. It's good to observe and to report. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you are trying to create an atmosphere where you believe that an individual has that right to protect the ballot, then you're crossing the line. Because according to the law, there are people who are there to protect the ballot. If we don't trust the system may never ever work for us. There are a lot of people who have these ideas that somehow this is not going to happen, that is not going to happen. It's called self-fulfilling prophecy. So you are saying that because it's not going to go this way, therefore I'm going to act in this particular way. And then you have the thing. You just told me that police can be overwhelmed. So imagine, I don't know how many voters are going to show up. If everybody who goes to the police station to vote and they don't leave, first of all, you will have a situation of crowdedness. Okay, so in this given police station, if all the people who voted at that police station remain at that location, we'll not be able to control the crowd. So people have to go in and come out. Now the question about whether if somebody voted and come back to vote again, first of all, it is not it is possible, but it's not entirely possible that you will be able to know all of those facts. Okay, that somehow you will know that it went into vote and come back to vote again. All right, I believe we need to have trust and confidence in the system that it's going to work for us. I understand the idea that people will be involved in misfeasance and malfeasance. People need to be vigilant, but I maintain, jealously so, that when you vote, the best thing to do is leave. The majority of people who vote, they know who they voted for. If we vote overwhelmingly for a particular candidate, those results will be reflected. We need to have confidence in the process. Or then why are we going to the ballot box to vote for if we don't have confidence in the process? We need to instill confidence in the process. If the process fails us, then we need to make the process accountable to us. We need to be a disciplined society that respects the law. We cannot expect to not respect the law and expect the government to respect the law. There is a high level of lawlessness in this country. Just look at the streets, how people ply the highways and the roads in this country. So we need to respect the law. So we need to be law-abiding. We must go in there in the numbers to vote. And when we vote, if you want to be around to observe, please do that calmly. Do not interfere with the process. Because when you talk about protecting the ballot now, that is a form of interference. Because if you say to me, "Oh, you were here to vote before," what is your proof that I was here to vote before?
I get the angle you're coming from. We need to take this from all angles, dissect it, and let people understand the pros and cons as well. Hence, I'm asking you the question so you can elaborate. But let's go to this issue of the very, 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 very large, if not gigantic, very, very large number of invalid votes we did see during the first round of elections in our country. 114,000. 114,000. And the NEC did admit that, I don't know, the chairperson of the NEC is on another local radio station, so I cannot say whether or not she has affirmed which they will be doing. That is, whether they will ink before people vote or they will ink after you voted, because that was one of the many reasons we had a lot of invalid votes during the first round. I was inked before I voted, and that caused problems for many people, because when you put the ink and the ink is not dried and the person handles the ballot paper and the ink touches the ballot paper somewhere, somehow, they say it's invalid. If you go to vote and you're using the ink pad and you put your thumb in the ink pad and somehow it crosses to another box, I heard one of the commissioners say they look at voter intent, but many of the polling places we went to, we didn't see people disputing and talking about voter intent. To say majority of 75-80% of this thumbprint is in this box, so this person meant to have voted for this person. We had the instances where people say, "Oh, you caused the one for me for so amount of time, so I'll vote for the person, I'll bust your ass." The other person, we had instances, these things are still happening. Someone will say, "Okay, I'm kind of undecided who to vote for, so I let him, so everybody take a piece. My heart is satisfied." But again, all of this boils down to the inadequate in terms of the time of voter education, CVE, that was done by the NEC during the first round. We heard the chairperson on the last 2 days of the press conference saying, when we make budget and people ask for the budget, that way you need to give people the money for them to do that. She was indirectly admitting that they didn't get the needed funds, hence they couldn't carry out enough voter education, CVE. So let's talk about invalid votes.
No, I think the level of invalid vote is unacceptable. Of course, one of my colleague who is an expert in these areas, he said, "Well, 5% is not a bad number, because in other places it has gone to 8% and things like that. But in our own case, 5% is too high for invalid votes." And I have other probable theories. One of them could be that well, I agree with some of what you said. And if issued around whether they ink you before you vote, I think then they should ink you after you vote. That's not rocket science. When you live in the ballot box, you can start right there and the ink and you go out.
A commissioner said people were refusing to be inked after voting. then the question is, what is your intention?
Yeah.
That's why we have law enforcement
Yeah.
at those various polling
Exactly.
places and voting precincts.
You make
It
sure that you
is,
are
you should
is
be.
determined from
Yeah,
returning.
it's part of the procedure.
Yeah.
So why would you want to vote
Yeah.
and refuse being inked?
And so that was why they were
Inking before.
Yeah. So you see, those are the dynamics, and that's why voter education is important. Again, you cannot overemphasize that point. It comes back to my own previous statement, which is that if political parties are really institutionalized and they are not at the whim of the leader, then those things will be deliberated upon. So things like voter education, yes, the NEC has a role, civil society has a role, but political parties also have a role.
Of course.
After all, they are the beneficiary of the vote. So they should be out there too, educating the communities, their followers, the voters about how to conduct the vote. So we need to improve on those measures. We need to improve on the some kind of decrease in the number of sport ballot. So it's that thing. The other issue also in my mind is some of the thing could be the first time voters. They probably are overwhelmed by the size of the ballot paper. That thing is very, very long.
20 candidates, and you were given 3.
Yeah.
3.
So that's part of the issue. Now we have 2 persons, so we hope that the left will not be an issue anymore. But certainly it's unacceptable. I think that every vote should count. But if your vote is invalid, then it does not count, even though you went there and you thought you were voting. No bossing our business. We must start that one. There are certain things that are in our control that we can do. I think also is that
for the voters, you go to the responsibility of the voters in making sure that they do their best not to turn their ballots into an invalid one. Mr. Pajibo, it's all yours. What should a voter do? Speak to not only the first time voters, but the experienced voters as well. Somebody might have been getting it wrong from the time they started voting up to October 10th. They might have been getting it wrong, thinking that, okay, I went in and voted. They don't remove the ballot paper from the box and say, Mr. Ezekiel Barclay Pajibo, this is your vote, valid or invalid. So you do not know whether your vote was a valid one or an invalid one, Mr. Pajibo. So kind of
no, they must follow all of the guidelines and the procedure and the when I was in school, if you don't follow the guidelines, you will have an F. So you need to know. Multiple choice. You can't say take 1, you can't say take 3. So those are simple things. But again, we need to be very diligent in the way we vote. We must not be. We shouldn't be in haste. They say haste make waste. So don't be in haste. You came there to vote. To vote. You were in the queue in the line for almost 2 hours. The 15 minutes or 10 minutes or 5 minutes in the ballot box, you must be, be calm again. Calmness, you must be calm, you must be deliberate, you must be diligent, and make sure that you vote appropriately so that your vote will not be invalid. Because if you don't do that, then you are wasting your own time, you are wasting the time of the people of this country. So please be diligent, please be careful, please vote properly. Follow the guideline. They say mark here, they pay you a mark. Don't go mark somewhere else where they didn't tell you to mark. If you put the ink on your finger before you vote and the ink getting wet, try to make sure that you dry your finger first before you handle the ballot. I mean, those are things that we can do. Most of us in this country will have handkerchief or towel and we can care to wipe our sweat. You can just clean around your finger. Now on the finger, then I go clean the finger, then you erase the post so you won't come back to vote. So don't do that. Just make sure the ink on your finger does not get onto your ballot. Manage this thing with care. It is the only time in your life that you're going to be careful. Be careful on this day.
Let's talk about this again. I cannot confirm whether or not the NEC chairperson has given the protocols, especially when it relates to inking. Because on that day, during one of those press conferences, when they were revealing preliminary results, she was caught between a rock and a hard place and needed clarification from one of the commissioners as to whether people were being inked before or being inked after. Again, it brings the question whether the mandate, when it's passed down to the various voting precincts and polling places, it gets changed based on who's in charge at that place. But should we, when you look at handling of papers and ink, and how a little bit of the ink could turn somebody's democratic right, into not being utilized or being exercised by them? Should we be inking people's fingers before the vote or after, when you look at best practice?
Well, it's hard to say because there are not that many research tools that you can look at and say.
Okay, let's narrow it down to the Liberian case where you're going to handle paper.
Yeah, a lot of voters now are digitized. No, I think the ink should not be applied in a way that is going to touch the ballot paper. Because I can understand why they want to ink you before you vote, to ensure that you are inked. Because like you said previously, some people after the vote, they don't want to be inked. So then you're creating a new problem now. So they need to administer the ink in a manner that does not make it run. And you can do that. You can do that. You can apply certain amount that it will not run. Or when you apply it, or the ink itself should have some kind of minimum amount of time to dry. This is science. I don't know what kind of ink you're using, but science, you can put an ink on my finger, in 1 second it gets dry. So maybe it's the content of the ink that we're talking about and the application of the ink. So we need to understand that. At the same time, voters have a responsibility too. You are exercising your God-given right. Do it meticulously. Don't, like I said, here's my ways. If the ink is not dry on your finger, you got 2 hands. Okay, so use the other hand instead of the other one. If you got one hand, then it's a problem. Then we need to have some kind of way to do
Yeah,
that. But you need to be very careful. The other issue too, we live, and I don't understand the chemistry of the ink. But our condition here is very humid. We are very sweaty, and in that place, there's a lot of heat. People are sweating, they're dripping with the sweat. So that could also impact the viscosity of the ink. But those are issues that we need to be mindful of, and we need to make sure that in the future we have a better kind of ink that dries very easily, given our weather condition and all of those things, because it's chemical, and chemical can react differently with different kind of thing. And some people in the queue for a very long time, they are eating here, they're doing the testing, all kind of stuff. So some of them can be sticky and all that kind of stuff. So we need to be very mindful. But I think ultimately, the voter has a responsibility to make sure that the ink does not get on the paper. There's not too much to ask for voters in those circumstances.
All right, so I'll just push it one last time, and then we'll move on to something else. When you look at the outcome of inking before and inking after, and inking before contributing to a large chunk of the invalid vote as well, and you talked about how humid our conditions are in the country and all of that, and you compare that to an individual refusing to be inked after, where you've got the appropriate authority there. Because now if you refuse to be inked after voting, it's like you've taken a product from the supermarket and you're refusing to pay. It's almost similar, and you're refusing to pay because you've gotten your share of what you want, and now you do not want to give your part of the bargain, to show that you've paid and you can walk out freely. You'll definitely be apprehended. So if you weigh the two in terms of which has caused more of a problem, would you want that people be inked after they voted to avoid a scenario of the ink from the person's finger, or the person who is applying the ink, it's called indelible ink, the indelible ink put too much on the person's finger, and then it rolled over, it spilled over, and it touched the person's ballot, or it didn't get dry enough. Which would you prefer, taking all things into consideration, Mr. Pajibo?
Yeah, taking all things into consideration, we just have the statistics here. 95% of the ballots were good. 5% of the ballots were not good. It's unacceptable.
Yeah.
Okay. Out of the 5% that were not good, some were declared not good because of the ink. So if we do the mathematics in this matter, probably, I don't know for a fact, I think one of the political parties is calling for a forensic audit of the ballots to make a determination. So once we get that forensic study, we will not be able to pronounce on exactly how many or ballot will be destroyed because of the ink. So we have to suspend that conclusion. So that's one aspect of it. I think that the 95% of the people who ballot were approved, they didn't have a problem with the ink getting on their ballot. That's a significant amount of people at 95%.
But even if one person is disenfranchised because the ink wrote on their ballot,
Yeah. Whenever I say, look, there's a look of personal responsibility here too.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point I'd like to make. Personal responsibility it's like, you come to, I took 6th grade national exam because with the last class I took 6th grade national exam, 9th grade national exam, then 12th grade national exam. Okay, they say when you come to the exam, bring number 2 pencil. So boys will come with our pencil, bring pen. They put it out.
Agreed.
Yeah. So you have to be diligent. You have to know that you're in this place to exercise your right and your responsibility. You must do that responsibly. We have to promote this idea of a responsible citizenship or dutiful citizenship. Citizenship is not free. It's not for
Mr. Pajibo, I understand all of the duties and responsibilities of a citizen, likewise everybody else listening. But again, the exercising authority should also take into consideration the shortcomings of what their action might cause.
Yeah.
So are you for, when you look at everything being constant, inking before, which will cause, in a way, somebody's ballot to become invalid, or inking after, which when an individual refuses to be inked after they voted, meaning they've got ulterior motive, which, let's just conclude on this, which is the greater of the two?
Like I said, given the percentages here, and then 95% of the vote, were valid, so there was no inking problem. We don't think the inking is this huge issue. So I would prefer, it's simple. You ink before you go, and when you are inking, make sure your ink dry before you touch the ballot.
All right. So you're saying ink before you go, but if they ink your finger, you should stand and wait for your ink to dry before you vote.
And then what I see you say, I don't know what the procedure is in every polling station, but like I said,
in those polling stations that they want to ink you before,
95% of the voters did not have that problem.
All right.
And even the 5% of the invalid votes, we don't know what amount was a function of the ink getting on the paper. So we need to quantify these things.
Okay.
And make it look
so
like,
you're saying,
so
you're saying that ink before you vote, but wait for the ink to dry, because it's part of your voter responsibility or your personal responsibility to make sure that your finger doesn't soil or the ink doesn't soil the ballot paper. You also said you have 2 hands. So if they put the ink on one, hold the ballot paper with the other, right?
Yeah.
So let's look at, if you ink somebody before the vote and the person stands and wait for 5 minutes and say the ink still wet on my finger. So I'm now casting my ballot until the ink can dry. That's 5 minutes. 5 minutes that 2 persons on average would have come to cast their ballot. Is it not going to also cause a waste in time?
Well, you see, I think what we are doing here now, we're trying to fill a pill using a teaspoon. Okay, it's not applicable. I also said, if the ink is dripping off your finger, try wipe it. We got towel, we got handkerchief, we got napkin. Wipe the thing. What your problem? Wipe the thing. So let's move
away from this.
Yeah.
Let's move away from this. The NEC, I'm sure, Madam Deveda Balasana and her people, they will come up with the final pronouncement again. It's for you to understand. That's why we're having this in-depth conversation.
Yeah.
If you go to a polling place in your voting precinct and they say bring your finger, let ink it before you vote. If they ink your finger, allow the ink not to touch your ballot paper. That is the essence of this conversation. If they ink your finger after you voted, voila, go out of the polling place. Do not resist your finger not being inked. But in the instance where they ink your finger before you go and vote, and the person in charge at that polling place says, that is what we're doing here, make sure when they put the ink on your finger, they put in too much, tell the person that you put in too much on my finger.
Exactly.
It's spilling over. Or if they put the ink on your finger, allow it to dry. You can shake your finger in a way or two. You can put it up. You can wait. And when you go there to vote, you make sure that it doesn't touch your ballot paper. You have to protect your vote jealously.
Yeah.
You have to say, look, this is what I came here. I stood in this queue for hours, and I need to, cast my ballot and make sure there is no interference. As Mr. Pajibo rightly said, it's either the NAC sign for your preferred candidates, the X within the confine of the box. There is no law that says your X should take one angle of the box to the next angle all the four corners your X should occupy all four. If you make your X in the middle and it's visible, it's seen, not so big, not so small, but a medium-sized X is going to be counted. If your knock sign, now for the knock sign to go from the bottom of the box all the way to the top corner, then the pen ink run also small. No, you can put it within, you should fix it within the box. That's how you should vote. Again, Mr. Pajibo will elaborate on it why it's important. Let them stamp the ballot paper given to you. That is where your personal responsibility comes in as a voter. Stand there. You get right to ask questions in a moderate fashion. But you give me a ballot paper, why you stamp it? Excuse me, hello. They may stamp my ballot paper, I can't use it to vote. They will stamp it for you.
Or even because somebody was telling me that sometimes they stamp, the ink can be faint. I mean, they don't use it on some ballot paper. By the time they reach to you, there's no ink on it anymore. So make sure that they put the ink yourself. When they put it, so make sure that when they stamp your ballot paper, that it is ink.
It's visible.
Yeah, visible. Exactly.
It's visible.
Yes.
It's very visible.
Yeah.
It's very visible. And again, most of our people, what we witnessed on the first day of the elections on October 10th was the fact that many of our folks didn't know the polling places within the voting precincts that they were to cast their ballots. There was a very, very visible sign of confusion within the first hours by NEC assigned staff, whether temporary or permanent NEC assigned staff. They were confused. At various voting precincts, there were different methods to determine which are the queues for you to stand in and all of these things. It confused our people.
Yeah.
So, what I know from where I voted is based on alphabetical order, the number of polling places within, that voting precinct. I'm S, and I was in the third polling place. So if you go there early in the morning, my people, go check on the wall for your last name before first name, and then you will see polling place is there where you voting. Then you go and stand in a particular line that go into that particular polling place, because some people stood in the wrong queue, and they would have reached at the gate and they will be told, no, you're supposed to be here. You're supposed to be on the other line. So everybody's got a part to play. The NEC staff and the voters. When you go there, go check on the wall. Okay, I voted in polling place 3. It remains constant. That's why I'm voting. Where the line now going to polling place 3. And I think, Mr. Pajibo, and you lay your thoughts on it, we'll open the phone lines as well. I think the NEC workers should have a system that works. If you have 3 polling places at the voting precinct, create 3 queues, 3 lines. Don't let people stand in one long line when they reach where you start determining where you need again. Oh, you need there. All right, S going where? S going so. No. Let them have a system that works. This is a runoff. Only 2 candidates are on the ballot. It should be as simple as ABC. The NEC people should help. Come up with a system that works. If you have 4 polling places in a voting precinct, what determines those 4 polling places would be the surnames and the number of people registered as well. Then you divide the lines. This is going to polling place 1. This is going to polling place 2. This is going to polling place 3. If we call 5 persons from this queue, we'll call 5 persons on the next. We'll call 5 persons on the other. Like that. It will work, and the place wouldn't be clustered up and people be confused. But everywhere you go, there's a different set of rules.
And I think that point is important, especially since we said previously that this is our 4th election. We have had several by-elections. So there should be some kind of institutional knowledge within the NEC how to avoid some of these problems. So they are not insurmountable problems. The experience is your best teacher. So every year you have the voting thing, all of the problems that you encounter, you shouldn't have the problems being repeated another time around. That is called incompetence and inefficiency. We need to transcend those impediments. These are not impossible objects.
Are you alluding to the fact that the NEC in the first round was incompetent? Because you just said that is incompetence for them to be struggling. And I heard the NEC chairperson, Madam Daviada Barlasana, doing the first press conference the day after Liberians went to the polls. She said the first few hours we were overwhelmed by the number of voter turnout, and that shocked me.
You should
that you'll be overwhelmed. You registered over 2 million people to come and vote. You expected them to come and vote. So you should have put in a plan of action that would have accommodated for 2 million plus people to come and vote. So why were you overwhelmed?
But I mean, the NEC did demonstrate a level of incompetence. Even reading the ballot paper, people don't know how to read numbers. I mean, how can you not know how to read numbers? You know, so yeah, you know, there's some incompetence there, and they need to work on that. Yeah, like I said, this is not rocket sciences. You know, you've had this is the fourth election in our country, so you must have institutional
minus the small by elections.
Plus
the fourth general election, minus the small by and midterm elections we've been having.
So those constitute institutional knowledge. I'm sure there are people on the NEC that have been there throughout all that period. So all of those kinds of things, that's why you should go on. There have been people who have been working for the election commission. Maybe when you're recruiting people to be a polling station, you must find out whether the people who were there once upon a time are still available to be there. So you give them full priority. And then intensive training. You must also do trial runs. You know, the person cannot come to administer or voting for the first time in their life. So you do trial runs. So you do mock electoral processes where they get to know what the problem, the likely problem will be, and then anticipate those problems later on. So they have a system in place to attend to those problems. And we have a lot of people in the school, they are former election commission members, they are civil society people who are knowledgeable about these things. They must also be, consulted. They must also be involved in the electoral planning process. You don't just keep them away because you don't like them. It's not about you. It's about our country. So all of the resident knowledge in our country, all of the institutional memory that we have in this country, they should be brought to bear on these kinds of processes. I mean, we don't like everything. You know, we need to go to the toilet, but we have to go to the toilet.
Let's talk about quickly before we go to the phone lines. I listened to the Minister of Justice, Liberia's Attorney General, Councillor Frank Musadin, in the joint security press conference held staged during this week, last week. We just began this week, working day last week, and he said people should refrain from announcing results, and that struck me because the Justice Minister is a learned counselor. And he has practiced for so many years. He's well revered and respected all around the world. And all around the world, forecasting, preliminary results are announced based on facts. And what constitutes a fact in our electoral space is the tally sheets that are pasted on the walls of the various polling places. And they are public information. When NEC officials and officers assign at the polling places and the political parties officials sign on that tally sheet and they paste it on the wall, is our Honorable Justice Minister telling us that I, as an ordinary Liberian, cannot go to that wall, see the sheet, call my relative or my relatives and tell them that Kennedy X got this, Kennedy Y got that? Or is he telling us that media institutions cannot send their reporters to those polling places, see these results on the walls that are pasted by the NEC officials, and communicate and tell people that, look, Kennedy X got this, Kennedy Y got that? Isn't part of protecting our democracy part of being transparent and factual information? When you conceal information, then people start to become skeptical as to what is happening. But again, there are two sides of the coin. Where do you stand on this issue of the announcement of preliminary results? There's a difference in announcing preliminary results and forecasting and announcing officially who has won an election. There's a big difference.
No,
where do you stand on this particular
transparency means that, it's like a glass, you can see through it. Okay, so like you said, I agree with you totally. Once the tally sheets are placed on the wall, that public information can be broadcast.
Yeah.
Because broadcast can be minute, you can take a picture and post it. And in fact, that is what you have to watch it there for. to make sure that those things are on the wall, and you don't
And
have poll watchers
correspond.
there to be mute.
Mhm.
Poll watchers are there to tell the party headquarters what is it that the result looks like, where they watch the poll. So if I'm a poll watcher for candidate X, and the election results are completed, I have an obligation to communicate that to my party headquarters. It's I think again some because situation room. I don't like that idea of war room to get away from the militaristic tip. But a situation where all those things I have participated in pool watching training. When you train someone to be a pool watcher, they are not there just to be there. They are there to look at the result, to make sure that the candidate is treated fairly, and then communicate that result to the candidate. So I think I know Musa Ding were schoolmates together.
Okay.
So I would not qualify him the way you did, but I know him. Sometimes we speak, or sometimes we misspeak, and I think that what he meant was a political party claiming victory before the official announcement of the results. That's how I will interpret what he said. But I think people have a right to communicate what is put on the tally sheet to the various political parties. The media has there's something called exit poll. People take exit poll after the election to have a sense of where the trend is heading. And I think that's why it is, because one of the good things about doing that kind of reporting is that people get a sense of where the voter are heading, and then they prepare themselves psychologically to deal with the result. And so I think transparency is very central to this. When the tally sheet are placed upon the wall, that tally sheet has to be communicated to the various political parties and to the candidates involved. And the media has to say, in this police station, here are the tally sheets, here is the result based on account. And I like the fact that you pointed out factual. Be factual.
Yeah.
No need to exaggerate, no need to hyperbolize, no need to say things that are not true. Be factual. Once you are factual, once you are transparent, then we all are happy on the kind of that. So the transparency issue, clearly it has to be observed, because if it's not observed, then you are bringing to bear on the election a degree of suspicion. You are feeding into suspicion, and it's not good. It's not good. Let people know that the thing has been transparent. That's why you have poll watchers for. The poll watchers have an obligation to translate or transmit to the people what they've seen, what the results show. Because it is said, they stated, it's on the tally sheet, so you can communicate what is on the tally sheet.
Okay.
And that is one way to keep the other people in check, because sometimes people are reporting things and not reflected on the tally sheet. So I think that
just a quick question. Let me just pick your mind. It's been a very, 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 very intriguing conversation, I should tell you. I'm enjoying the conversation, but again, time is not our friend. But you can choose to answer this question, because he said the justice minister is your former classmate, schoolmate. You guys, all right, you guys go to parties and all of these things. You know yourselves like that. Did you sense, you're not supposed to speak for him, but from your own deductive reasoning, did you sense that was political pressure playing on him to have made that statement, especially for a lawyer as he is, knowing words? The law is all about the English, how you write it and how you say it. Did you think also that there was some ploy under to muzzle media institutions from not giving results, to some kind of undertone there? There are conspiracy theories who are saying that statement had a lot of things said in that one statement that wasn't said as well.
Yeah, no, I know him, but again, over the years, people change, people become something else, and when we knew each other, we don't go through.
He has met.
So the point here is that, you see, the spoken word, the person hearing the word has the right to interpret what you mean. So that is why you have to say what you mean and mean what you say. My understanding is that the premature announcement by any political formation that they have won the election, I think that's what he was talking about.
Okay.
I don't believe that he said he meant that tally sheet result cannot be communicated. But I cannot speak for him, but I will interpret what he said.
For such a crucial statement, do you think the justice minister could have been more picky, concise with the sort of words to use? to have said we want people to refrain from announcing results rather than saying we want political parties to refrain from declaring themselves winners and wait on the official results from the NEC. And that would have been straightforward, and also caution the media to report the actual numbers.
Yeah.
That lets us know that you're on top of your game and you do want to know what's happening in the country. Because to some extent, there was a very large backlash, enormous backlash coming from the public, not just Liberia, but and the rest of the people, to come on, talk about the statement coming from the justice minister in a negative way, that he was trying to clamp down on freedom of information as well.
One of the problems we have in this country is people who are in the security sector, they like to pronounce themselves as no nonsense people, and I think they believe that by putting fear in people obey the law. They don't understand the psychology of people. People, when you threaten people, it can lead to different kinds of reaction. I would have, if I was his advisor, I would tell him to say exactly what he needs to say, which is that, admonishing the public not to pay heed to the unofficial result of the election. That would be where I would start. I would start. Whether or not you're under political pressure, well, it's almost impossible to be a minister in any government and don't be on pressure from somebody or another. Because you serve at the will and pleasure of the president. So you will always be on some kind of pressure. There will be things in pressure. But then if you think that the pressure is unbearable, then you leave. You resign. That's the honorable thing to do. But you can't say, "Our pressure to do this," and then you do it. No, that's not that's unacceptable practice. That's a sense of lack of integrity. But if you behave because you were pressured and you behave accordingly, then you're complicit. Okay, so one has to stand for something or you fall for anything. Okay. So I think you should stick to the law. You should observe the law. If the tally sheet are posted on the wall, people have a right to that information and they can communicate it. As long as it is not tampered with. That's another thing you say. You see a tally sheet, take a picture and just transmit the picture. Don't tamper with the tally sheet. There's a simple language that everybody will understand.
Okay, we're wrapping up now, Mr. Pajibo. There was this saying in the public that based on the turnout of the first round, usually if you look at the stats of our elections, the second round, the runoff, people don't really turn out like the way they do during the first round. So many factors. One of the major factors is this issue of taking people from one place to another to go and vote. And if you don't win, or even if you do win, you don't want to facilitate taking them back to go and vote. Now, someone coined it as it is now the actual inhabitants who do vote during the second round. Because those who stay there, live there, register there, they are the ones who on a majority vote during the second round. And just a minute number of those who register there to other places go there to vote. What's your word to those who will be going to the polls on tomorrow? First off, do you still sense that there is a high level of anticipation that Liberians can wait for tomorrow, like the way we saw during the October 10 polls, to go out there overwhelmingly express themselves? Does that enthusiasm still exist from your perspective?
Okay, let me put it this way. One of the reasons why the first round has more turnout, like you said, previously, because you have other candidates who are running senatorial, and member of the House of Representatives, and members of the House of Senate, and they do mobilize their people to come so that they can win the elections. Now and then you have more candidates in the race, so there are more people who are out there animating the public to come out. In the second round of the presidential election, you don't have those kinds of people. So mathematically speaking, you have a reduced number of people. So, but my point would be that anybody who is a registered voter and who is duly resident in the particular area where they voted must come out and vote. I know that I don't support the trucking of voters across lines, so I don't look forward to seeing people do that, because in my mind, I think it's wrong. I'm not sure whether it's illegal, but I know it's wrong. You cannot do that. I know a lot of politicians who have done that, and I have told them, some of whom I know, I have told them it's the wrong thing to do. Because you cannot mobilize the support because when you get elected, it is the people who are in the area that
they're affected,
or the Senate. They will be affected by the policy you carry out. The people who you are being trucked in, then the other thing with the cross-border issues. So those are problems about trucking. So we shouldn't be doing that kind of stuff. But I want to just appeal to all the registered voters that where you register to vote in the area where you are, go and vote on that day, because it's good that we have people in the Senate who are being elected, people in the House who will be represented, but also the number one political office in the country is on tomorrow. So they should come in the normal and overwhelmingly express the support for the candidates of the choice.
All right. So overwhelmingly express their support by voting for the candidate of their choice. We can't even allow you to say which candidate because campaign is over. But you from the LPP, is it the LPP that endorsed the United Party, or the one or two LPP that?
No, it's the party.
That didn't go.
The party.
Oh, okay. But the entire party.
The entire party. We don't have those funny people.
Nobody left me. Huh?
No.
All right, folks, we open the phone lines for a minute or two just to take few calls, and Mr. Pajibo will then give his parting words, and we'll have a conversation another day. 077771075 055101075. Remember, campaigning is over, so we don't expect you to say vote for this person, vote for that person. The question is, how prepared are you tomorrow to go out there and vote the candidate of your choice? Let's hear you out quickly. What do you stand on the whole issue of inking before, inking after? We had a lengthy conversation surrounding do's and don'ts of elections, how you should vote, how you shouldn't vote, how you should check out your name at the various polling places, at those voting precincts that you registered at, to be able to vote in an orderly, peaceful manner as well, to go in as fast as possible, do your voting, come out and do what you have to do. Let's take this person here quickly, 1 minute per caller. Hello.
Yeah, good morning, Thomas.
Morning. Let's hear you out, please.
And good morning to the many listeners. This is Jonathan Joe, and I'm calling from District 6.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank you for Mr. Pachibo for the brief analysis and education. But to just add to what you just said, I just want to be brief. The issue of inking before voting, I think the Election Commission need to reconsider that decision, because the experience from 2005 up to now, my own experience I've had over the time, I think the best way to save the voter from some irregularity or some the issue of invalid vote is the ink can be placed right after the screen. As you leave in the screen with the observation of all of the observers and the election workers, for right in the screen, you have your ballot paper in one hand, the hand that will not be inked, and then the hand that will be inked, you display it so that the ink can ink your hand, and automatically it will not be contacted with the ballot paper that have already been marked.
All right,
I think that will save our elections.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling as well. Let's take this person quickly. 077771075 055101075. Just 5 minutes. We'll have to take calls and we'll be out of here. Hello.
Yeah, good morning, Samuel.
Morning. Let's hear you out, please.
This is William Express and I'm from the car when you're
welcome. Go ahead.
It's an urgent call to NEC. I want you to do that. The car when New Georgia North Road, the only thing that I've created, which is Garden of Prayer, of sound that have been placed up by the pastor of the Garden of Prayer school in the church, that election will not be heard there.
The pastor said the voting precinct, he agreed this time around.
Even during the registration process, we are denied to register in the face, and we did registration on the post for complete 4 days, and it is going October 10 again. It happened. So there's a sample of they have been offering 2 weeks. They have been flirting that. So what NEC to look into it because
where's the location again?
Carwell, New Georgia, North Road. The only center have created Garden of Prayer Pentecostal School.
All right.
And up to now,
We're
NEC
noting
have not
that
come up
down.
with clarification on where we will be voting in that area. And now the only center created. And to the point again, we are encouraging all networkers. The people who also will be using who know no property we agree. But the people who also be using some of those houses don't have quarry. And they own time during the election we have some network that only have one or flat left. It has to also be that.
All
So
right.
we are telling the both parties they should make sure the well equipped the full water with flat left. And if you go negotiate with the people for the horse, they have LEC, let NEC take the responsibility to provide quarry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Salient points he stressed there. I was in conversation with somebody who worked as a temporary staff at NEC. They were expressing some of the challenges they faced. And one of those challenges was the issue of the lack of electricity. Not that the building didn't have electricity, but the owner said, since that NEC using it that day, they should pay for the current. And imagine they couldn't come up with those who were in charge of that center couldn't come out with the money to pay for the electricity and all of that. That was a big scuffle they had, and that delayed the entire counting process and all of that. But let's take this person here. Hello.
Yeah, Damo.
Hello, sir. Let's see how you are, please. Morning to you.
How you doing?
I'm fine. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm calling from Boston. It's important that we talk to our people to peacefully go to the poll tomorrow. There are 3 things almost like a football match. You win. The second one is draw. No one wants the last one. No one can win and be sad. No one can lose and be happy. But one of the things that has to do with it in here, you see, for us, like, we are not tolerant. If Ned relax and say, we will ink you after you are voted, you'll see some people start to become intransigent. So let us have Ned to, I know they got problem. In fact, some of them have their own problem or two. What I'm trying to say is that somebody has not been paid. Somebody who have been paid, you go, trust me, go to some of the police station. It's supposed to be 5 at every police station. Sometimes you see 3. The total person around. They happen to work. That means the VR will be doing different other work for 1 or 2 persons. So those are some of the things you see most of the invaluable that comes out in the election. That's why you see, because people will feel that it is their responsibility to do any wrong thing. No, your responsibility to do the right thing. But if you relax saying that, oh no, let us wait the report to finish for them to go in there, you will cause serious care because people will be doing their own thing. If you say no, go for it will be the same thing. So that's something that next year, even go around to talk to people long time instead of coming to them to say it. Instead of coming to them to say it too late. So let us pray for the best to reduce the 114,000 invalid votes. Even if they can reduce up to like 5,000, it's much better. Then that percentage will go to other people. Instead of we sitting down there, increase it. I imagine if it goes up.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Let's take this person here, wrap up, Mr. Pajibo. Hello.
Hello, Damo.
Morning.
Good morning. This is Tina Gaga calling from the Mount Barclay Bill.
You're welcome. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah. I got 2 things on my mind. Please, I beg you, please, Percy, or you, after the show, please call me. I just need to tell you. And for the 14 days here, the pool washer, that they carry that food on time. Let them forget about answering for or slap because I want to be the distraction. I saw it on Mount Barclay when I went to vote. Let the people secure our vote. Please, in the name of God. And they will be there. Every food church should be there on time. Before the people get there, they should be there. Please. Because we're going in the sun, we're going in the dew to be there until the sun can come up for us to vote. They shouldn't take our vote for granted. We're begging them.
All right, man. Thank you. All right. So, Mr. Pajibo, sadly, that's all the time we have to take calls. We're already out of time. We got a minute to go. So kindly give us your parting comments, and then we can wrap it up and call it a day.
Well, thank you very much for having me here. It's been delightful. I just want to tell the Liberian people, please show up in your numbers and vote for the candidate of your choice. do that overwhelmingly, so we have no doubt as to who the next president of the country you voted for. As well, be peaceful, and we look forward to a transparent election, a peaceful election, and that every single vote matters. So please show up tomorrow to cast your ballot.
Thank you. So those were the words of Mr. Ezekiel Barclay Panchibo, encouraging Liberians to go out there tomorrow to cast their votes. So you remember the polling places, the voting precinct, they do open at 8 a.m. according to the National Elections Commission. But we did see people queuing up as early as 3 a.m., 4 a.m. During the first round of elections in this country on the 10th of October. Whatever the case is, remain resolved, remain resilient to go and vote for the candidate of your choice and do it in a very, very peaceful and orderly manner as well. Make sure you have, if you are inked before you go to cast your ballot, make sure that you do not allow the ink to touch your ballot paper. If you are to be inked after, my people, the thing is simple thing. If you're voting already, show your finger, let it just put the ink on it, and you walk out. The ink can do nothing. If you don't allow them to ink you after voting, that means you got a different intention that is not of the best. So remember to go out there and conduct yourself in a very orderly and peaceful manner. You've waited 6 years to do this. You need to do it and have for yourself a wonderful day on tomorrow. The Spoon Network is going to be live throughout the course of the day on tomorrow. Spoon Talk comes your way tonight. We'll have a very, very lengthy presentation. Tomorrow we'll be all over the country, making sure we'll bring to you everything that is happening across Liberia. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Diamond Slanger. And the Today Show ends for today. We'll be back here on tomorrow. Bye-bye.